plus 2R for $480. Let's see how we did it. All right, guys, I was able to get into a long after the live session. Unfortunately, right after the live session, so I do apologize for that I didn't stay on longer. Wasn't necessarily planning on taking the trade. But 2R winner, 480. So I'm back up on the week. I was down 0.7R yesterday, so up 1.3R. One winner, one loser, and a couple break evens yesterday. Take a look at the trade. So I got in at 11:05. We went off the live session like right at 11:01 or 02, basically right around 11. I grabbed a quick glass of water, and when I came back, got into the trade. So in my notes here, decent trade setup. The ES spent 1.5 hours sideways in a very tight range before making a false breakout to the downside. The ES had plenty of opportunities to break down, with the NQ and the Russell dropping considerably hard. Price then retested a level after the false breakout. It retested a level that I had been eyeing, and the internal seemed to me to be turning bullish. So I set the trade with a limit order at my original zone. I did have a slightly tighter stop than usual because of the profit potential, because of what I consider to be very good supply overhead. And because of that, I did scale out a little more aggressively than usual. It was a good trade overall that I need to be taking consistently. Ideally, though, the internals would have been in my favor before taking the trade. We'll take a look at that now. The internals, I thought were in the process of turning around. We got like a slight signal a little bit before that this market may want to go long, and so my trade setup came about. You'll see I made $480 on the trade, a full 2R. It was a 2R planned, and I made a full 2R on it. And so let's take a look at it. If we take a look here, price made the false breakout down. I was originally looking to maybe take a short, but when the 15-minute did not close below all of this mess to the left, it basically closed back up here. I didn't take the short anymore, and I had been eyeing this zone, this 2-minute candle right here. When price was up here, price came, hesitated for a minute, made a leg out, got to the VWAP, and pulled back, and then broke back out again. And I was eyeing this candle here as my zone, with the stop ideally behind the pivot. But I tightened up my stop a little bit because this was my full 2R target here, and I wanted it to be below all of this mess up here to the top left. And so I tightened up my stop just below, or just above the pivot, because I didn't want, my target was going to be up above 4,300, and I wanted it to be below the 4,300. And so a slightly tighter stop than usual, but that is my zone, that 2-minute candle. I mean, in all reality, I could have my stop up here, but I always try and give myself as best of a chance as possible. And so when price broke out here again, I set a limit order and finally got filled here. Took very little heat on this trade. But it did have a hesitation here at the VWAP again. Now, my original trade, 8 contracts, had all 8 contracts up here at the 2-to-1. But I had the VWAP here, and also right at 91.50 was the current point of control on the volume profile. And so I just, very obviously, right, price broke out, retraced. Could price drop from here? Absolutely. But to me, this was going to be the low of the day. Price had already spent the last hour and a half trying to break down. Didn't. The NQ and the Russell ran out of steam, essentially. And so my trade was long. But I did want to scale out a little bit just in case price did reverse, not end up taking the full loss on it. And so, again, price hesitated slightly when it got back to the VWAP right here, pulled back, and then when it broke right through, hit that first target. When it hit that first target and continued to push upwards, I did tighten my stop up, risking now only half of my full risk. So now my stop was behind this pivot that we kind of talked about in the live session, and then price hit my second target, right? That was 2R for half of my trade, leaving me 2 contracts on. And so when price hit that target, I actually moved my stop up to 1-to-1 because at this point I had a full I had a little over 1R locked in, and moving my stop up to here would have locked in another R on these 2 contracts. So if price would have pulled back here, I would have made 1.5 R on the trade. That's essentially, I was trading the P&L, to tell you the honest truth. Because normally I would leave my stop at break even, but I said, hey, we have supply here. If it pulls back, it can certainly rip right through here and continue to go down. I'll lock in 1.5 R, and my final 2 contracts up here at 3-to-1 was a full 2-to-R dollar amount on the trade. So risking half an R to make the full 2R. If price pulled back, I'd make 1.5 R. If price came up here, make the full 2R, which you'll see here is what happened. Price, I mean, just continued to shoot straight up. This was my final target here below this dotted line that we talked about in the live session, which was the triple top highs from way back in April and May. And price very cleanly broke out of there. I mean, hit target, slight pullback, continued up through there. Somebody that has a runner on would have been very happy with this trade. And so a full 2R there, clean trade, very, very little heat in the pullback there. And a trade that, again, in my notes, as you saw there, I need to take this trade every time. I call this from one of my mentors, I call this a trapped trader's pullback. We had the false breakout short, and now we have all of these people trapped in this short. Tried to come back. All of the stops are above this pivot. So when it broke, when it tested here in my level and it broke out from there, see you later. All these shorts getting stopped out. When the shorts are getting stopped out, these are all buys. All of their orders are buys, helping this trade just go to the moon, basically. And so these were the internals at the time. The internals were not necessarily in my favor at all at the moment. As I stated previous in the live session, this breakout to these new highs here, I said, could be the signal that this may want to go long soon. And so it pulled back here, didn't test these new highs, but didn't come to these lows, didn't have a strong rejection off of the zero line here, and this could come and test these highs, absolutely, and then even made new highs. And then this is, I believe, when either this is when I fully targeted out. I fully targeted out at about 11:30, so yeah, maybe here. The advanced decline wasn't in my favor, trending downwards, but kind of hesitated here. Did break above the 21 EMA that I have there, and then just hesitated around there, tested it again, and again. I'm like, if this is going to go long, now's when it's going to go long. The NQ and the Russell lost their momentum to the downside. This is where it's going to go long from. I need to get in sooner rather than later. Kind of the same thing here on the NQ, had made new highs, broke back, tested up here, came back to the zero line, hung out there, and then had that help from the NQ as well in my trade. The VIX down here started to come in my favor. It was going up while the NQ and the Russell were coming down, but then started to come down, broke this pivot here, and this is when I got into the trade. Not necessarily I would have liked for like I said in my notes, I would have liked for the internals to have been more in my favor when I got into the trade. I would have liked to have gotten into the trade with like this confirmation candle breaking these lows there. But if I waited, it would have gone without me. And then on that same chart here, I have the dollar. The dollar is the one thing that really wasn't in my favor during the trade. The rest of the internals were all in my favor during the trade. The dollar was not. The dollar came down and then had this pullback here. For my trade to go up, I'd like to see the dollar coming down. And so when it had that pullback, I was like, okay, that's a healthy pullback for it to come back and retest these lows when I got in my trade. That didn't happen. Price continued to go up on the dollar, but the rest of the internals at that point were in my favor, and so my trade worked out. And then if you see the four major indexes, the ES here, sideways all morning, false breakout. This was my long here. The Russell, right, came down all morning and then lost its momentum to the downside, and the same with the NQ. And when it lost its momentum to the downside, I was like, time for me to get long, because it can retrace all of this on the Russell, it can retrace all of this on the NQ, and that was my trade. The Dow was strong. The Dow, what I wasn't paying attention to, that when we got off the live session, somebody that I follow on YouTube had just gone live at 11 in the morning, and they were commenting that the Dow was above the 200 daily moving average that we were watching on the ES and on the NQ. And so that was literally like the title of the video, Dow holding above the 200 EMA. So that's what it was doing here. Remember, we talked about the Dow being the only one bullish, holding above the 21 EMA, holding above the daily 200 EMA, and I was like, that gave me, that was the last confirmation that I needed to set the trade, and I did. It worked out quite well. Again, took very little heat. Can't complain about the trade at all. I don't even mind that I don't have a runner on and that it continued without me. I had supply up here. I'm taking my trade to supply. I targeted out quite nicely, and recovered yesterday's losses and then some, but still have a long way to go this week to meet my weekly goals, and my weekly goal being 5R. Not far from that, but it's not like I'm even halfway there yet. But certainly 3 days left. We have some news tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Red folders tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see some better movement tomorrow. I do have a long ways to go here to get back to my equity peaks that I'm not anywhere near right now. I had a rough July for the most part, but slowly trying to grind my way back out of it. And we live to fight another day. So thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow, Trading Futures Live. Again, we show you our winners, we show you our losers, we show you our journal afterwards, our mindset through the trades, try and be as transparent as possible. I do apologize that I didn't take this during the live session and that I closed it basically just before I took this trade. But it's also hard to take trades live in front of you guys. That's why I can't wait for Franco and Beto to come back. Would have been a little bit easier to maybe keep the live session on a little bit longer with them around. But catch you guys. Catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.